Yeah, how about we stop tolerating the weak and raise our standards? That's what we're going to be talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the winning team. If this is your first time, lovely to meet you. If you've been here for a long time, I love you guys so much. You're the best. Today, we have a heavy hitter because I've been thinking a lot about the state of this world. You guys know I'm a problem solver. And I realized that one of the defects of society is that we tolerate the weak. And what happens is we tolerate the weak. The strong have to get stronger. The strong end up having to be so strong that they become a significant minority doing all the work for the majority. But then the majority of the society in and of itself, because the powers of the people, right? We have power in numbers. The more of us that do something, the more power we have. And so the predominant amount of people that could potentially be making a difference isn't actually available for what needs to be doing. I'll use an example with you guys right now. So I was watching a series that I love, absolutely loved, on this channel called The Korean Englishman. And on there, he did this whole series. He's got this series, he does these series with these boys from this school in England, from Fulham, and he takes them to Korea and stuff. So anyways, he took these boys, they were all 19, to Korea, and he took them there because in basically young men in Korea, they all have to do a year and a half of military service. So they do proper military training, like everything like that, so that they know what to do in combat, right? And obviously it made me think a lot, because I think a lot about this stuff. I think a lot about war because I'm not asleep. I'm not woke. I'm very much awake. I'm very much aware, you know what I'm saying? So I'm aware that at any given moment there can be a war, and there's no use crying about it and worrying about it. It's more use addressing it and thinking about what the hell we're going to do if it happens, right? So I'm very aware that a lot of the world right now, other places outside of the West, are significantly, like as a population, are significantly stronger when it comes to things like war, like if there was a war. So that's one example. Because when the boys had to go through the training, bless their hearts, they did their best. It's not their fault. The system, the governments, the adults in power have not done the job of creating these environments and things that the youth are supposed to be doing. So I don't blame them. I blame us, the adult population, who utilize our free will and our power to just give more power over to people who've got our worst interest at heart. But nevertheless, I think about the fact that as a whole, as a people, the youth from a place like there, even the youth from places, say, for example, in Africa, based on the circumstances in which people live, versus the youth of like places like the UK. If you were to take all of the same age groups, even the United States at this point, if you were to take all of those age groups and get like 100 boys from each of those countries to fight against each other, yeah, it's not looking good for those of us in the West. Can I just say that? And the reason why I'm saying this is I'm saying it's not good enough for there to be a small group of people who are strong that are doing all the work for the weak. It's not good enough, right? There needs to be a societal standard. Like we need to raise the standards as a people of strength. And I'm actually more so talking about mental strength. I'm just using the physical strength as something that you guys can like visualize like the like what I'm trying to like explain basically. And so I have been thinking a lot about the fact that a lot of the strong people I know, a lot of the strong people I've seen are very exhausted, and are a lot of times exhausted in having to spend so much time coddling the weaker folks out there, right? And we just need to stop doing that. I'll give you guys some examples. Phrases of things that people have said to me, for example. Things like, you shouldn't expect from others what you're prepared to give. And I'm like, why not? Because the more that we just accept lower and lower and lower and lower and lower, because you see, people don't get stronger by being coddled. People don't get stronger by being expected to do less. People get stronger when they're pushed past even what they possibly think they can do. That's why there's so much value in like training, when you're like training in the gym or something, having like somebody who doesn't care about your feelings and pushes you, even though you're crying, even though whatever, because they're pushing you to a point where you're going to be able to achieve more than you thought you could, right? It's very much how a relationship with God works. Like it talks about in the Bible, if you look at the story in, I think it's John 15 that I keep referencing, when Jesus talks about, I'm the vine and the Lord is the vine dresser, right? And he's basically saying that, like, listen, either way, there's going to be some kind of cutting that's going to happen. It's either you're getting cut off because you're not the fruit of this vine, because you're not attached to this vine, or if you are fruit of this vine, you're getting pruned. And I was talking about this with my friend, the one who the one I go to in Italy. For those of you who don't know, who might not know, that I have a friend in Italy who I go to do things like singing and on tour with Zuko, and it's all a bit random. Anyways, and she was explaining to me, since she's a sommelier, about how like the best wine in the world, and I've said this before, but I'm saying this for the sake of anybody who might not have heard this. She was explaining to me how like the best wine in the world, it's always the wine that gets pruned and repruned and repruned and repruned and repruned. It grows grapes, they get pruned, and it happens all over and over again, right? Versus the very cheap wine that you probably find on like the bottom shelf in the supermarket, whatever, is the wine where they just take the first whatever old grapes are there and we just work with what we have. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that this coddling nature that we have in society doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anything. The strong get stronger and the weak get weaker. Right. And then, but then there comes a certain point when the strong that are stronger can only do so much without there being more of a number of people that are actually available to have the same level of strength. I realize this from having conversations with human beings, right? Because I realize that sometimes what I never understood, which I now understand, is when I talk to people a lot of the time, they seem as though like I don't really get into any particular topics because I know that people can't really handle it, right? It's just something that I never thought too much into until super recently. I realized that every single time that that's happening, and I'll talk about something, because to me, talking about the very deep things in the world, it's not like I feel like it's a privilege to be too weak to handle a lot of conversations. Like when I'm talking about the children and the young people and what's going on the border with the in the United States with the child trafficking, or how and the entertainment industry is, well, not just the entertainment industry, a lot of industries are killing kids for whatever reason, whether it be sexually assaulting them, whatever, so they can boost the adrenaline, so they can extract the adrenochrome, which they use for a lot of different things, whether it's, the state of the education system and the types of things that are actually going on in schools, whatever. When I talk about these types of topics, right, and people are like uncomfortable, especially adults, I'm like, it's a privilege for you to be uncomfortable right now, because that same privilege in your uncomfortability and the fact that you can't handle this conversation is why these things are happening. Because if you can't handle it, that means we're all just ignoring the uncomfortable stuff. Meanwhile, these people are suffering in the background. And I started to realize, I get it. It's not that even that people don't even care. It's that people are also actually very weak, and we've allowed weakness to become a normality, and we tolerate it. We tolerate like, don't say anything that makes people too uncomfortable. Don't rock the boat. Like, don't, whatever that it may be. And in the moment, it might seem fine, but it seems like all we're doing is coddling weak, inactive people, because those people aren't going to do anything special anyway. Those people's names are not going to be remembered for anything special because they're too weak to be able to do anything. What a lot of them could actually handle is somebody cracking the whip a little bit and being like, okay, stand up. It's not nice to talk about, but we need to talk about it. What are we going to do? Are we just going to cry? Are we going to cry about it, or are we going to do something? You know what I'm saying? And I think we need more of that energy is basically what I'm trying to say. Like, we need to just throw away this whole thing of like, we're just going to like it, though that's a bit uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong. If people are in a position where like they're going through something really like they've been through whatever and they need help and they're struggling to work through it, that's not the same as being weak. For me, being weak is when you can't handle the truth that's in front of your face, and a truth that you will also pay the cost for. Perfect example is the stuff like going on in the UK right now. There's all these UK malarkeys happening, and people are like, oh my gosh, the riots, this, that. People are paying in this country right now for the weakness. You might not have liked the idea of saying something uncomfortable in the moment of a conversation, but if everybody does that, so I'm talking about the collective, the sum of everybody. At the end of the day, whatever happens is a result of the sum. Who creates a greater number, which side has a greater number of people exercising their power. So if more people are choosing to be weak and more people are siding with weakness, siding with silence, siding with victimhood, victim mentality, licking their wounds and everything, right, all the time, then whatever happens is going to be a result of that. It doesn't matter if there's a group of people who are trying to do the opposite. And the group of people who are doing the opposite, even though a lot of times are very effective, can only go so far if every time that they're doing the stuff, there's not people backing them up. This is exactly why times like now we have all these discussion going on around things like the United States election and all this and that and the other. Why? Because the governments know that no matter what they'll do, because the devil will do what he wants to do anyway, right? They need for a majority. Same with the entertainment industry. Why do they care so much about you think? Why there's always this emotional manipulation that's happening everywhere? Like, why are people doing this? I was literally reading through this this thing where basically this, I don't know if you guys know, obviously Mr. Beast, he has this handbook that he gives to people who are going to become his staff, and it's really interesting. And it talks about, basically he describes minute by minute in the video how you must, as a worker of the Mr. Beast team, no matter what department you work in, be able to account for exactly what minute of the video, or couple of minutes, i.e. minute 1 being the most important, minute 1 to 3 being another important section, and then minutes up to minute 6. And apparently if you get people up to 6 minutes, they're going to watch the rest of the video. And he has a whole ethos around how you control the mind of people in those 6 minutes of the video. It's like all you have to do is be the most strategic at the majority of people, getting the majority of people on your side. That's what I'm saying. That's what everybody's doing. So that's why I get so frustrated, and I've always been frustrated. I remember as a kid I was frustrated about it, and I told myself as a child, I was like, I will never, oh, sounds like my neighbors are having fun. I told myself I will never be that adult that is just complaining and does nothing. Because that was also weak. For you to sit there and actually habitually complain about things you plan on doing nothing about is weak. For you to always be waiting for somebody else to jump in to solve all of the problems that exist in the world, that is weak. Because if we all did that, and this is why I think a lot of people are privileged, if we all did that, what are we going to do? This is why I have an issue with the Christians now being like, oh, we're hoping for the end times, bring the end times. Listen, you're just waiting for Jesus to come and do what you don't have the courage to. And the Bible says, and those of you who've been on this channel long enough, you know what our verse of this season is, I believe 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Lord did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I've talked about how even in the book of Revelations, and there's a part where the Lord describes a whole bunch of things which include murder and all sorts of other things that will send you to the lake of fire. And you know the first thing he talks about? Cowardice. Cowardice. Because God is like, how dare you call yourself one of my children and act like a coward? How dare you? So I think we need to raise our standards and stop making excuses for people. Right? If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. Grow up. Shut up. As you guys have said, I've said to you guys, my whole life, I've had this phrase that I always say to myself. And I always say it to myself before a competition, before anything that I have to do that is something that I'm scared of doing. Shut up, boss up, stand up. Shut up, boss up, stand up. Get it together. The problems, if we're all waiting for somebody to fix a problem, the problem's only going to be fixed when somebody actually stands up to do it. So if you're waiting and I'm waiting and they're waiting, we're all going to be waiting and nothing's going to happen. If we keep coddling the weak who are doing nothing anyway, they're not at it. All we're doing by coddling the weak people of the world is enabling. We're enabling destruction because they're not going to do anything other than lick their wounds and feel sorry for themselves. Anyway, they're not going to do anything but wait for somebody else to fix anything. They're not going to do anything, then waste your time and energy and drain you and be a blood-sucking leech to your energy that could be used and redirected. That's what's going to happen. So we need to stop coddling them, right? They need to shut up, boss up, stand up. It is insane to me how many different things in the world that some people can handle. Some people can be offended today by a comment that some random person made on the internet. I'm like, who cares? Why do you care what somebody on the internet who doesn't even know you, who you don't know, why do you give a single damn about what they have to say? You're weak. We're not ready. And then if there is any wars, you guys better pray. The weak out there, you better pray so hard you better pray so hard, because some people, I don't know what you're going to do. And that's the problem, again, is when we keep lowering the levels, then these people could get to exist like that. And then it shifts our society where we end up with a weak society as a whole. And then what do we do? Because there are certain situations and certain things where we need numbers. Like I said, if there was to be whatever type of war, God forbid, and all these things, and all these other politicians, you think Xi Jinping is over there just allowing a lot of this stuff here? The bro's going crazy. You think Vladimir Putin, all these lot over there, and all these people, you think they're just sitting around waiting and for whatever? I was so impressed by the fact that when I started reading Mein Kampf, that the fact that of all the things Adolf Hitler was talking about at the very beginning of his book, right? And by the way, I want to be very clear that I'm aware that this is an adjusted version, because the real version you can't find anywhere. It was hard for me to even find the one that I do have in the first place. yada, yada, yada. Anyways, so I take it all with a pinch of salt, knowing that things have probably been slightly adjusted. But I find it really fascinating that one of the first things he talks about is about education, the education system, and how children are being taught. And that's the first thing. And do you know what's funny? That I discovered that there is, I can't remember the name of the theory. I'm going to talk about this whole theory at length in the future videos. I'm still studying it, about the correlation between the society's attitude towards children and the success of that society. And there is a direct correlation between the two, which that had nothing to do with Mein Kampf. I just came across that in my own studies of a lot of things. Anyway, you guys get the gist here. Let's raise the standards. Let's stop making excuses for people. They need to just shut up, boss up, stand up. If you can do it, if I can do it, this is how I'm living my life now. I don't want to hear nothing from nobody. If I, at the age of 27, as a black woman, let's remove the race element because I feel like that's a bit loaded. If I, as a 27-year-old woman, can handle the amount of things I've handled in my life, and I can still be here, and I'm not an a-hole to nobody, and I can stand up for what I need to stand up for, and I can do whatever, then the rest of the adult population can do it. You guys can do it too. Because a lot of people in the adult population, I'm so sorry to say, you have a lot of things that I haven't had. And I'm like looking at you like they're needing coddling because somebody said something on the internet. Because somebody said something on the internet and you need whatever because somebody commented on you, because somebody said you look a little bit chubby, because somebody, whatever. It's like, that's what we're looking at. And then we want to now look at ourselves as like, oh, the big West, and let's just pack it in, right? And stop coddling the weak. Those who need to, if you want to get stronger, listen, iron sharpens iron, as the Bible says. Get around some stronger people if you want to increase your strength. And be proactive about it and be courageous, as the Bible tells us. You've got to be courageous. Don't just be waiting around for somebody else to swoop in and like somehow do what you can't do. That's a privilege. That's selfish as well, if you think about it. If you can't do it, who do you expect to do it? Realistically. And what if they don't? Because that's what we're living in now. And right now, this is why I call this channel The Winning Team on purpose. There's a reason I call it The Winning Team, because winning, the overall win, we already know is going to be the kingdom of God, because Jesus already defeated death, and Jesus is already he's the winner, he's the ultimate winner. But also the reason is because I think of winning as an ideology, to be honest, as in the winner is, there's no emotion and there's no even good or evil about the winning, who wins. Whoever wins is the person who played the best game. And we can't keep making excuses, licking our wounds and feeling sorry for ourselves whilst other people are working damn hard to execute their own win. That's why these days I'm giving a round of applause to the devil, because I'm like, wow, bro's doing a good job. So that's what I have to say. We need to stop coddling the weak. We need to start holding people to high standards. Stop making excuses. I don't want anyone to make excuses for me. I don't want to. This is why I don't like to even go to people about my problems, because I don't want, when I'm going through things, I don't need somebody to. I don't want somebody to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sad. No, let's find a solution. If I need to cry, I'll cry. I'll spend, like I say to you guys, I give myself usually 3 days because I believe you have to process your emotions, because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. If you do not release, it will build up inside of you and it will come out in whatever way that it does, right? But then at some point, you've got to shut up, boss up, stand up, and move on. And what I mean by that as well is we need to move on in the way that the Lord intended, because the Lord anyway wants to do everything with us anyways. He's the one who's going to fuel our strength and fuel our everything. But we've also got to actually step up and step into the position in order for the Lord to produce the fuel. It's actually asking somebody to put fuel in a car that doesn't exist. The car has to also exist first. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If life's a game, let's play to win. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.